Yo, what up guys? Welcome to my video, Jack's off to Cambodia, and let's get it going with day 3. I slept surprisingly well last night despite all the sound of nature. I woke up once the sun came up.
Got it?
Had a quick breakfast and met a family from Australia who were also staying here. I didn't really have a solid plan as to what to do in Siem Reap. Well, I knew for sure I wanted to check out some of those Angkor ruins and also at least one floating village. So some people actually spent a few days checking out the Angkor ruins, but for me, I thought one day was enough. You know, this way I don't get too sick of looking at temples. I was staying in Siem Reap for about 3 days, so I needed something else to do. When I was in Vietnam, I met this Cambodian girl who was working in Ho Chi Minh City, and she recommended this place, Phnom Kulen. And when I brought it up to Madden, he was like, yeah, it's a pretty popular place, even amongst locals. So after breakfast, Vidak came to pick me up, and it's time for an adventure. The truth is, after learning about Phnom Kulen, I just looked at a few pictures and decided, you know, it's a good enough place to go check out. I didn't do much research because I wanted to have more of an element of surprise. It's one of those adventures where I didn't plan for it, but just went along after talking to some of the folks I met along the trip. I wasn't sure how far it was or what the main attractions were, but the first thing we had to do was get an entrance pass in downtown Siem Reap first. The ticket was 20 bucks, kinda expensive for me, especially since it was Cambodia. After getting tickets, we stopped by a random spot so Vida can get some breakfast. You gotta feed your drivers so they have energy to drive your ass around. And once Vida was well fed, it was time for a scenic ride. After about a 2-hour scenic ride, we finally made it to Phnom Kulen National Park. Aside from the greenery, the main selling point here are these waterfalls. So if you're into waterfalls, this might be the place for you. The waterfalls come in different sizes. You got the smaller one up top, where hella people are just chilling. Cambodia is friggin' hot and humid as hell, so chilling by the water is a nice thing to do. Then you can hike to the lower area where you can see the bigger falls. This is where people go for a dip. Didn't really stay here for too long because I felt like this place was more for big parties rather than for solo travelers. Honestly, if I were to do it all over again, I'd probably go somewhere else. Yeah, it's got waterfalls, but I've seen better ones in California. Like the Bernie MacArthur Falls. But still, one of my favorite photos taken in Cambodia was actually here in Phnom Kulen. The other thing I wanted to do was to go check out one of the floating villages. There are 3 main ones here in Siem Reap, all on the massive Tonle Sap Lake. First, you have Chiang Kanias, which is the closest one to Siem Reap and therefore the most touristy. Then you have Kampong Phluk, which is a little further away, so it's a little bit more authentic than Chiang Kanias, but still kinda touristy. And last you have Kampong Kliyang, which is the furthest one away and supposedly the least fabricated one. I really wanted to go check out Kampong Kliyang because I wanted the more authentic experience, but due to time, Vidak suggested Kampong Phluk instead. First, you gotta get a ticket, which was like 20 bucks. Then you get on one of these boats and they will take you to see the floating village. During the dry season, you're supposed to be able to walk through the village as there are no water. But during the wet season, you have a massive lake and the villages look like they're floating on the lake, therefore floating village. I really wanted to check it out because it's something I've never seen before. It took about 10 minutes from the pier to get to the first floating buildings. As the village started to slowly review itself, I was just amazed at how everything was. It was so simple looking, yet so different. Life here seems so relaxing. With the exception of tourists, life here seems pretty isolated. People were just chilling, some were swimming, most were drinking beer. I would have loved to spend a night here if I could. Even though it's kind of touristy here, it was still a very good experience. After a good 15-20 minutes, we made it to the deeper part of the lake where the village ends. A lot of people, tourists and locals, usually chill here for the sunset, but in terms of photography, it was a bit bare, so we turned around and slowly headed back. Personally, I thought having the village with the sunset was a much better shot. And since we're taking it slow, this was also the perfect time for the dad to teach the young grasshopper how to operate this boat. You know, for us, we can more or less choose our careers, but over here, there's not that many options. This little kid may very well have to take over his father's business and make a living operating this boat. Anyways, so about this tour, I kind of wish it was a little longer, because the entire experience was like, what, an hour? For 20 bucks? At least we made it to the sunset though. In hindsight, I wish I would have went somewhere other than Phnom Kulen and maybe spent more time on the floating village, because I was more fascinated by the floating village than the waterfalls, but you know, it's all good. For those of you who are planning to visit Cambodia, I just hope my videos will help you decide on some of the places you want to go and some of the things you want to do. So if you're a waterfall enthusiast, check out Phnom Kulen. And if you're into floating villages, try to go to Kampong Phluk first, and if not, you can always try Kampong Phluk. On our way home, we stopped to get some dinner and Vidak needed some beer because he was tired. He said when he drinks and drives, he just drives on instinct.
Lemongrass, okay. Okay. And then just mix it.
And the most important thing is, the two of us got back in one piece. This was a super long day, especially because of all the traveling. Major props and a lot of gratitude for my boy Vidak for driving my ass around the entire day. After we got back to the village, I talked to Madden about the plan for the next day. It was going to be a super early start, so after a few beers, it was time to go to bed. So let's end this video on that note. Alright guys, thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Until my next video, Jack is off.